evening, everyone. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. Craig McKee is off tonight. New at 11, the Archdiocese of Cincinnati and the Diocese of Covington have previously both set up funds for survivors of sexual abuse at the hands of priests. But one church body ended up paying out more than the other due to differences in state statutes of limitations when it comes to civil cases. Now, an Ohio lawmaker is trying to change the law to help survivors. Tonight, in part 3 of Culture of Silence our investigation there, that is, I-Team reporter Dan Monk follows the money when it comes to clergy sex abuse. He explains how Ohio law may have helped the church dodge huge liabilities.
It all comes down to the almighty dollar, unfortunately.
Christie Miller was a 14-year-old freshman at Mount Notre Dame High School in 1984 when she says the Reverend Thomas Brunner manipulated her into a 2-year pattern of sexual abuse.
At the time, I don't think I realized what was happening. I felt he made it feel like a relationship. He didn't make it feel like abuse.
Miller says her former religion teacher sent her handwritten cards and compared their relationship to the Thornbirds, a 1983 miniseries about a priest's forbidden love for a younger woman.
I still have intimacy and trust issues today because of that abuse.
When Miller sued the Cincinnati Archdiocese in 2003, she says its response only exacerbated her pain. Instead of defending itself with facts, the church's attorney simply argued her complaint was barred by Ohio's Statute of Limitations.
They knew that it was wrong, and the church knows that it's wrong, but they didn't want to pay people.
Miller is one of at least 800 local Catholics who've tried to hold the church accountable through lawsuits, lobbying, and criminal complaints. The I-Team has been following the money to see how well those efforts have worked. The trail for civil claims begins and ends with the Statute of Limitations.
When Miller first sued the church, Ohio law required victims of childhood sexual abuse to file civil complaints before they turned 20. By the time the Ohio Supreme Court dismissed her case in 2006, Ohio lawmakers had increased the age limit to 30. But lawmakers also rejected something 9 other states have since approved. It's called a look-back window, and it lets people like Miller file lawsuits over sexual abuse allegations that are already too old to comply with the Statute of Limitations.
It was just an agreement they came to with the church.
Miller says she was blindsided by lawmakers.
You would be amazed at the number of senators and representatives that came up to us that said, that happened to me too, and still voted against the legislation.
13 years later, Ohio is one of the nation's worst states for child sex abuse victims to seek justice. That's according to Marcie Hamilton, CEO of Child USA, a nonprofit organization focused on ending child abuse and neglect.
Ohio is one of the few states that still has not eliminated the criminal statute of limitations for child sex abuse. It still puts an age cap on the criminal statute of limitations, and it still has a very short civil statute of limitations.
Hamilton is talking to Ohio lawmakers about major changes to Ohio's statute of limitations. A Cleveland area Democrat has even proposed bringing back that idea for a look-back window, and that could revive decades-old claims against the church.
This has been a banner year for these laws. We've never had this much activity, and we have states that I would have told you 10 years from now might not do it, that have already enacted legislation. So I expect Ohio to start moving more quickly, just like everybody else.
To understand the impact this would have on the local church, you just need to travel back to 2003. That's when former Hamilton County prosecutor Mike Allen won the first criminal conviction of an archdiocese in the United States.
We were just hampered at every end by the statute of limitations.
Allen says his office investigated 75 to 80 allegations, but they had trouble finding cases recent enough to clear a different statute of limitations for criminal cases. So he struck a deal to accept 5 no-contest pleas from the Archdiocese of Cincinnati as a corporate entity, plus a $3 million settlement fund to be shared by victims. To get the money, victims had to sign away their right to file a civil claim in the future.
It was my thought at the time, and again, 18 years later, I think I was right about it, we wanted to get something for those victims because they would not have been able to pursue the cases in the civil courts because of the statute of limitations.
120 victims got $27,000 each from Allen's deal. That's the 5th lowest average payment of any church settlement since 1984, according to a list of 174 cases compiled by the watchdog group Bishop Accountability. Across the river in Kentucky, attorney Robert Steinberg got one of the best settlements in the country from the Diocese of Covington.
A number of people received awards of $1 million in our case.
Steinberg said there were significant differences in Kentucky's statute of limitations for civil cases. That enabled him to convince church attorneys he would prevail if they tried to shut his case down on that basis. The end result was a $90.5 million settlement shared by 252 people. Hamilton says she's not surprised a trial lawyer had such a big impact.
We only know what we do about the Catholic Church, Jehovah's Witnesses, the Boy Scouts, because of trial lawyers. So as much as, many people perhaps don't trust trial lawyers or are concerned about them, they are doing a huge public service on this kind of case.
Miller just hopes trial lawyers will be able to work that kind of magic in Ohio someday.
Does money affect them? Absolutely. If it hits their pocketbook, they're more apt to change. That's why money plays a role.
Local church officials on both sides of the river declined to answer our questions about finances or talk to us on camera. But its public statements show the Cincinnati Archdiocese spent $10.9 million since 1950 on settlements, counseling, and legal costs related to abuse allegations involving 60 priests. The Covington Diocese spent more than $99 million on 5 settlements since 1995, including Steinberg's class action case. Dan Monk, 9 on your side.
All right.